Okay, so who's next? Let me bring this closer to my face here. Marzgurl. Okay, Kaylin Saucedo. Sausages. Sausage Party. Sauce Gardener. Marzgurl. This series of events covers my participation with Channel Awesome from my joining in September of 2008 to my voluntary leaving in September of 2017. Certainly other minor irritations and moments of hurt feelings have come up besides what is listed in these bullet points. However, to list those would likely be too many and too petty for this document. Yeah. Clearly you didn't read through your friend Allison's segment, but let's go ahead and just get this started. Thankfully it's not as long as hers, but it's just as silly regardless. Okay, so she starts off with early unfulfilled payment promises. I was one of the earliest contributors to the site, and thus I was one of the ones who was asked to directly transfer my video files into the hands of Mike Mashad, who would then upload my video to their Blip channel. For the first short while, my videos were not being hosted on any channel I had any control of. This was so that they would receive the advertising revenue from my video, and I was told that they would pay me out for the money earned on my videos. This never happened. Idiot. You are an idiot. That is dumb. Like, why would you agree to that? That is stupid. I mean, you didn't see a red flag there? Oh yeah, sure, here. Just take all of my videos and upload them all to your channel with no way for me to access them.
I didn't yet have a Blip channel, and they said that they were going to be paying me based on the views that my videos were getting. Never happened. They never paid me a single cent. And I was young and dumb, and I still stuck with them. And that's on me. That is totally 100% on me.
This is why you need to sign contracts. She then said that her co-producer Lewis Lovehog, best known by the internet moniker of Linkara, suggested that she open her own Blip channel to put her videos on, and apparently Mike Mashad scolded her for doing this and he didn't like that, so she apologized and said that she didn't understand that she wasn't allowed to do that and only did it because Linkara did it, and from that point she just began contributing videos from her own upload links, and she was never paid for any of her early contributions. Possibly because she agreed not to be, but, you know, there's that. The mistitling of videos. One of my earliest video series was titled Animation, a Children's Medium. Its intended purpose was to question whether or not animation was truly meant just for children, as is often perceived, or if it has also commonly had a specific adult audience. I described this video to Mike Mashad as being something like a history of animation, but I didn't intend for it to be called as such. I just gave it that description so he had a clear understanding in a brief amount of words as to what this project was. I think he'd have a clearer understanding if you just told him what you wanted the thing to be called. When the video was embedded onto the site, it had been totally and completely mislabeled as a history of animation when the title of my video even came up near the beginning of the video and was not called this, so I knew that Mashad had not in fact watched my video. This led many viewers to be misled by the title and were angry directly at me for making a terrible video about the history of animation when that's not truly what the video was. Well, that's your fault. That is your fault too. No, you're trying to shift blame here. I mean, the guy just titled the video based on the description that you gave him. Why would he have to watch your video? Why didn't you just tell him what you wanted the video to be called from the start? This probably wouldn't have been an issue had you not beaten around the bush and just gave the guy the title. When the subject came up in the That Guy with the Glasses forums, I explained to the people questioning this that there had been a miscommunication with Mashad about what the video was supposed to be, and that I would make sure that he understood what it was next time. This led to Mashad reaching out to me on Skype to once again completely lose his patience at me and text shout at me something about making him look bad and or incompetent when it wasn't his fault. It really wasn't his fault. He does have a good reason to be annoyed with you. Being 22 at the time and not knowing how to handle such a situation when I was so happy to have been made an addition to the team, wow, you live a sheltered life. I mean, you were 22 years old and you didn't know how to properly de-escalate a simple misunderstanding. I'm pretty sure children learn how to do that. I buckled and apologized profusely, saying this was another misunderstanding and that meant that I was the one who communicated badly and that I wouldn't let it happen again. I went further and said that since I kept messing up in his eyes, maybe I wasn't truly the right choice for a contributor to That Guy with the Glasses. Only after making myself look like the fool to him did he back off and leave the topic be. I have since wondered if he was just satisfied that he had successfully made me feel ashamed. This is not a big deal at all. A misunderstanding happened, the guy was upset, she apologized, and then Mike left it alone because there was no need to press the issue anymore. The little jab at the end there of Mike supposedly trying to get her to feel ashamed, no, that just comes off as emotionally manipulating the reader. Like it's a way for her to seem like an innocent victim and she's making management seem cruel. I mean, maybe Mashad wasn't the nicest he could have been about it, but she's presenting this like it's some kind of awful ordeal that it might not have been. I mean, He didn't make you grovel and degrade yourself before him. He didn't tell you that you were not the right choice for the site. You chose to do that just to appease him. Like, what does this complaint even amount to? They mistitled a video based on my poor description. Who cares? It's a mistitled video. It's an accident. It's not the end of the world. This is not that big a deal. You're just blaming management for something that you did wrong. I mean, oh, God, get out of here. Next. The perceived rivalry with Screw Attack. Mike Machad was frequently uncomfortable with the knowledge that for a brief while I was on decent communication terms with a select few members of Screw Attack, and that I would sometimes write in their blog sections and post in their forums. He would reach out to me on Skype and tell me that he was not comfortable with my communications and would prefer if I stopped interacting with them altogether. His reasoning, he told me, was that he perceived Screw Attack to be that guy with the glasses' direct rivals, and that he was concerned that Screw Attack would steal me away as a contributor. I assured him that this was not going to happen, and that I did not consider myself to be a video game content creator, and that I was satisfied being attached to Channel Awesome. While this satisfied Machad for a brief while, I did not understand his concerns, especially since Doug Walker, the nostalgia critic, had been brought significant viewership by participating in crossovers with James Rolfe, the angry video game nerd, whose intellectual property at that time was under legal ownership of Screw Attack. Partnership and interaction seemed to be working out well for them, and I was upset that Machad addressed me with such vitriol during the situation. Well, I suppose it's rather silly of him to be concerned with people leaving the site for their competition, considering he never gave you a contract, but there was no reason to be concerned with Doug leaving that guy with the glasses because it was his own site, and collaboration with James Rolfe really wasn't that far-fetched. The angry video game nerd was a far more popular and bigger name than you were, so collaborating with him was likely to draw more eyes to the site. Also, what vitriol? There's no trace of hostility at all in this description. If the guy was being hostile with you, then you failed to convey that properly. I mean, if anything, the guy clearly cared and wanted you to be there, since you say he was worried about Screw Attack stealing you away. She then goes off about how in 2009, Mike Machad suggested she not go to a gaming convention, but she went anyway. And then in 2010, she participated in the next Screw Attack gaming convention as a general staff member, typically asked to stand next to doors and check members for their badges. This year, Noah Antweiler, Spoonie, was a guest at the convention. I told him that Machad had a previous history of being upset with me for communicating with Screw Attack, which is when he told me that he was also hearing Machad's upset tone with him for agreeing to be a guest at SGC. Well, it's funny how Spoonie also got messages from Machad too, and he just went and did his own thing anyway. Almost like he wasn't under any contract, wasn't an employee, and could manage his online career on his own just fine without having to piggyback off of somebody else. My decision to distance myself from others during my time as a contributor. All of these interactions with Mike Machad made me very nervous about doing something wrong, and it felt like there was always a target on my back, or that someone was always looking for a reason to drop me as a contributor from the site. Rather than having to put up with the anxiety of being told I did something wrong when I had no idea I was doing anything wrong, I began to largely pull away not only from communicating with Machad, but with anyone on the site at all. I kept to myself for the next several years and did not want to participate in anyone else's drama, and just continued releasing my videos on my own as best I could. My interactions with Machad also made me very gun-shy about participating in Skype or being available on Skype in any capacity, and I feared logging on and seeing some new angry message from Machad. I would sometimes not log into Skype for months at a time. This would begin to cause communication problems when site management would decide that rather than give us promised communication through their monthly emails or through our internal scheduling site, they would instead put all contributors into one large Skype chat room and use that chat room to deliver important messages to us. I would often miss large, seemingly important notifications due to this, and despite them having multiple email addresses of mine and my phone number, they never utilized it. And we're supposed to feel sorry for you? Sorry to say, but no, that's partially your own fault too. Like, it is admittedly silly to run a business just through Skype like that, but you did yourself no favors when you chose to distance yourself. I mean, you made no attempt to reach out or talk to anyone on the site because you were so afraid of some guy sending you a slightly rude message. Do you not see how ridiculous that makes you sound? For the love of God, woman, grow a spine. Open your mouth and talk to people. I mean, you can't complain about poor communication and then not communicate. And she starts complaining about costumes. Let's see, many of us were expected to make our own costumes for the anniversary films, myself included. In most instances, we were not paid for the creation of these costumes if we were deemed capable of bringing them or making them, nor were you ever going to be paid, and you knew that. Don't work for free. Before the filming of To Boldly Flee, I was asked initially to make a costume of Leela from Futurama. Luckily, I did not make it far in the construction of this costume because I received an email from Doug saying that I needed to make a costume of Marzgurl Kusanagi from Ghost in the Shell standalone complex and a very specific outfit of hers. There was only a couple of weeks left before the shooting of the movie, and I had to make some expensive and fast purchases to throw it together in time. We were told that if we made our costumes ourselves during the Boldly Flee, they would pay us for the construction of the costume if we met 2 conditions. 1, we had to provide receipts for the materials used to make the costume, and 2, we had to turn in our costumes over to Channel Awesome. I was frustrated with this idea, and I decided I wanted to keep the Marzgurl Kusanagi costume for myself. It meant taking a financial loss, but I was not happy that I would have to hand over a costume that I had to both make and wear myself. Okay, so in other words, you have no real complaint. I mean, I get you wanting compensation for the time and work put into a costume, but if you wanted compensation for the materials, then Channel Awesome most certainly has the right to ask you for the costume. I mean, it's their movie you're working on. You didn't want to give them the costume, so you didn't get compensated. Either keep the costume and be happy, or, give them the costume, get compensated, and make a new one. Like, this is something you should have negotiated beforehand. This is nothing. Sorry. That's your fault. Next, the death of the nostalgia critic into the Boldly Flee rap party. As is mentioned elsewhere, the death of the nostalgia critic and the ending of his character and review series was written into the script of the Boldly Flee. Many people did not know that this was going to be happening until they read the script. Many others did not understand until filming got underway, and from my discussions with other content creators, no one had a clear idea of what they were supposed to do with their content creation once this was loaded onto Channel Awesome and the rest of the internet found out Doug was making this decision. Okay, that sounds like a you problem, not Doug's. After we had finished filming, during the week of the Boldly Flee, a rap party was held at a pub nearby the hotel we'd been lodged at. We paid for our own meals. At this party, Doug Walker handed out individually addressed letters to each member of the cast that was there, which seemed like a nice enough gesture, but the finality of the letters indicated that Doug did not intend to continue to create anniversary videos, nor did he intend to utilize us again. It was obvious that we were considered obsolete to him at this point, and that perhaps we were just expected to go on about our lives without him, not considering the consequences for everyone what he was about to do. The consequences for everyone? Yes, of course. How dare Doug treat us like adults and expect us to take charge of our own careers? Doesn't he know he's supposed to keep making videos so we can all survive? You guys do know that you're kind of low-key calling your own content bad, and you don't have what it takes to make it on your own when you say stuff like this, right? I'm sorry if this sounds harsh, but Doug didn't have to tell you people squat. You're not his employees. You post videos to the site for exposure and ad revenue, that's it. You're volunteers, independent contributors, you're not legally obligated to anything. I mean, it's not Doug's fault that you guys threw your eggs into one basket and made Channel Awesome your entire livelihood. I mean, he's not responsible for your careers. He never was. He was well within the right to retire his character anytime he wanted in any way he saw fit. There was a simple solution for this. Yo, SpongeBob, show him.
Here you go. It's alphabet soup. I made it special.
That's right. Get a real job. And this is not a dig at content creators. If what you do is not making enough money to keep the lights on or feed you or support your family, then you don't have a job. You have a glorified hobby. I mean, y'all had plenty of options. If Channel Awesome isn't working out for you, join another site. Or make your own, put your videos there. Get yourself some sponsors, market yourself on Twitter and Facebook. Work a regular 9 to 5 and do content creation on the side. I mean, I don't know, y'all have to put some work in if you want to be successful. This complaint just seems like you all blaming Doug for your own lack of foresight and setting long-term career goals. Besides, what's the big deal? Isn't this a good thing? I mean, you all complained that Doug was taking up too much of the site anyway. Remember, they were like, this was the Doug show, they only care about Doug. Doug this, Doug that. So you hate the guy for hogging the site, but now you hate him for going away. It's like, man. This is part of the reason I gave up reading this document so early when it first dropped back in 2018, because it doesn't seem like these people have any real grievances, just whining about how much more popular Doug is than them. Besides, in Allison's segment, she said that everybody was miserable during the production of To Boldly Flee, and they stopped doing the anniversaries because they were expensive and exhausting. But now we have someone complaining about how Doug isn't doing any more anniversaries. Why would you want to do another anniversary? Did you guys hate doing these things or not? I thought Doug was this awful director who doesn't know anything about storytelling and makes you all act like him. Yeah, do you guys want to keep working with him? Like, can you make up your minds? Then we have even more petty nonsense where she complains about Rob Walker not caring about plot holes while filming the anniversary movies. Nothing important, just want to laugh at a grown-ass woman wasting time complaining about how she wasn't called by name for a scene and she wasn't visible in a shot, and that made her sad. Really, that's considered a legitimate grievance. Ah, man, you guys really make complaining about nothing seem like an art form. And this is why you need to keep your grievances concise and to the point. Alright? If you complain about every single little thing, you run the risk of contradicting yourself and sounding petty. Because, like right now, Marzgurl just got done calling Channel Awesome out for not planning on utilizing the producers on their films anymore. But now she wants to complain about being mistreated and neglected by them when they were filming one of their anniversary movies. It makes no sense. Why would you want to keep working with people who you claim are so incompetent? I mean, they have to have been doing something right. I mean, you guys kept agreeing to come back. She then goes on about how Channel Awesome mistitled some of her videos again, which is not abusive at all, just a mild annoyance. Channel Awesome often wouldn't tweet or post links on Facebook for her videos, and by her admission, it felt like management was commonly attempting to make me feel invisible to make me want to quit on my own accord rather than be fired and make a big deal out of it that would get them into hot water publicly. She also says that there was a weekly producer spotlight that was meant to feature a new producer on the front page every week, and she was never featured, and she wasn't on the schedule at all in the first place. Maybe it was because that your videos just weren't very good and nobody was watching them. Besides, why would you think anybody would care about you being dropped as a contributor from a site that you never worked for in the first place? Then we get to hear how she left Channel Awesome. Eventually, she decided she couldn't wait any longer and left on her 9-year anniversary with Channel Awesome in September of 2017. She could no longer idly sit by and watch others and herself be affected by their poor management and direct abuses to any of her friends. What abuses? Nothing you've said so far is remotely abusive. Like, this is a thing that really irks me about this document. People keep throwing around the word abuse just to use it to vent about things they don't like or complain about not getting what they want or act like somebody being slightly rude to them is abusive. It's like, just because you're extremely sensitive doesn't make what you went through abuse, guys. It just makes these people sound like a bunch of pansies, if I'm being honest. Anyway, she left a farewell song in the Channel Awesome group Skype chat and then removed herself from the conversation. Within a single hour of her removing herself from the group chat, all of her content had been removed from the site. Well, I'm sure it was. I mean, you cut ties with them, lady. I mean, how long did you expect your videos to stay up? They're not going to advertise a producer who's not making videos for them anymore. Unlike previous contributors who had received pleasant farewell messages from the administrators, no such farewell message was delivered to me, a contributor who had been there longer than 90% of their team and had been in every single anniversary movie. Well, you didn't even care to tell them that you wanted to leave. I mean, you just posted a song on a group chat and split. And after leaving like that, you're somehow shocked that they didn't give you some kind of heartfelt goodbye? You sound very entitled. Maybe if you grew some backbone and didn't hide away from management all the time, they probably would have given you that fond farewell you wanted so badly. It just seems to me that they treated you with the same urgency that you treated them. Like, wow. This woman who has been here longer than 90% of our own team and has been in every single anniversary movie, and that's the way that she decides to leave us. So be it. Bye. And really, I just want to point this out. People didn't say goodbye to me. That's a serious offense we're talking about? Just get out of here, man. Ugh. So whiny. That's all she wrote. And honestly, much like a lot of other people in this document, I don't believe that she's being entirely ingenuous. In Channel Awesome's response to this document, they highlighted an interview where Kaylin was talking about her departure from Channel Awesome, where she admitted that she and a lot of others would have stayed on the site had it still been financially viable for her. She said, and I quote, "I stated this a few times elsewhere, but had he, Doug Walker, decided to wean his audience onto Demo Reel. For context, Demo Reel was the name of a new show Doug Walker made after the original run of his Nostalgia Critic show ended. Rather than just suddenly hard-stopping Nostalgia Critic to literally everyone's surprise, maybe it could have done well, and maybe we'd all still be relying on channelawesome.com for some of our views, because once To Boldly Flee happened and there was no more Nostalgia Critic, viewership plummeted." Okay, so much like Obscurus Lupa, it sounds to me like she's just upset the site stopped being a good source of income for her, and now she's throwing Doug and Channel Awesome under the bus because it's convenient. I mean, it would make sense, given she admitted to having a manager suggesting she stay on the site because being associated with Doug Walker's brand kept her relevant. And it does explain her disappointment of no longer getting to be a part of the Channel Awesome anniversary movies despite complaining about them. But of course, this all contradicts the narrative of Channel Awesome being this awful, evil, horrible place to work at. Just seems kind of shady to me, like she's trying to have her cake and eat it too, you know? Like, these people horribly abused and neglected me and my friends, but I would have stayed anyway if they kept making me money. Yeah, this woman is a crybaby, just like her friend Allison. She did not go through anything abusive or horrible, there's nothing here. She's just a bunch of over-exaggerated whining and minor slights and stuff that she did to herself. So, I'm done with it. That's it. Alright, next is Linkara. I'm convinced that this dude was just looking for things to complain about and was just asked to contribute to the document to make it longer, because all of his complaints are a huge nothing burger. Like, there is literally nothing of substance here. Joining the site in inked reality. I joined up with the site when I had very few reviews, maybe 5 or 6. My meeting with Mike Michaud was at night, or rather very early in the morning, I'd say around 3 or 4 a.m. Central Time. While I admit in hindsight it was unprofessional for that to be the case, it wasn't really a problem for me then due to an erratic sleep schedule. You just said it wasn't a big deal, yet you're still complaining. I mean, people do work overnight, dude. If you're awake at the same time, there shouldn't be a problem. After informing me that I was on the site and they enjoyed my early work, I was told of some of the plans for the future of that guy with the glasses. If I recall correctly, even then the plan was to eventually rebrand it as Channel Awesome so that the focus wasn't strictly on Doug Walker's work. Yeah, more Doug is a bigger star than me, boo-hoo. Specifically, the plan was to break the site into various satellite websites, the central one for movie and TV reviews, one focused on video games, and one focused on comics and animation. While I don't think the name Blistered Thumbs existed yet for the video game site, there was definitely no name yet for the comics and animation site. If my memory can be trusted... I'm sorry. But phrases like that are the biggest problem that I have with this document. Like, if my memory can be trusted, or if I recall correctly. Because remember, in the same document, they say they want all of their information to be verified, and yet we have several instances where we're going off of memories, which are not always reliable. If my memory can be trusted, even back then, Mike Michaud was suggesting I could head up that satellite for comics and animation, referred to as inked reality from here on out for the sake of simplicity. The way that he described these plans, it seemed like they would be happening in the near future. Since I was young, eager, and enthusiastic about the idea of managing a collection of sites, I started looking for talent. I put together a contest for people to submit their work and made it a private video on Blip so he could review the idea and let me know when we'd be ready to launch. That time never came, although some change at Blip at one point a few years later released every private video to the public, confusing 1 or 2 people who found the video later. While we later came up with the Inked Reality name while spitballing a few ideas, there wasn't really any attempts to advance it at any point. The Inked Reality eye catch featured at the end of several videos came from Team 4-star member Masako X, who was also doing videos for the site by that point. He liked the idea of a satellite website as well and did the eye catch on his own initiative. When Michaud approved of said eye catch, there was still never any momentum to move the idea of a satellite site for Inked Reality forward, nor any discussion of me potentially running it or anything of the sort. After Blistered Thumbs launched, I did assume that Inked Reality would actually follow at some point. I was unaware of the difficulties Blistered Thumbs was facing until after the fact. By this point, I really had no desire to run Inked Reality because of the amount of time and energy I was putting into my own show, but it didn't seem to matter because, as far as I know, there wasn't any other momentum for launching Inked Reality anyway. Okay, so this is a complete non-issue. I mean, you're basically saying the Channel Awesome was thinking of making another subdivision of the website in the same vein of Blistered Thumbs, but for comics instead of video games. Only interest fell through because Blistered Thumbs was so poorly managed. He even says himself he wasn't interested in working on it anyway because he had his own show to deal with and nobody else wanted to do it, so I'm not understanding what his complaint is. Like, he's angry that Channel Awesome didn't sink time and money and resources into a subdivision that nobody had any interest in making anyway? That makes no sense. Then he wastes even more time crying about how the company didn't hire forum mods. Yeah, he really complains about this. He whines about the lack of moderation, so the company made him one, but he didn't want to do it, so he brought in somebody else, and that's his complaint. Yeah, it's like, hey, there's too much freedom of speech and too many people with opinions and are saying things that I don't agree with on this board. It needs to have more moderation. Okay, fine, here you go, you do it. No, you need to hire someone else to do this for me so that I can get what I want out of a forum. But what do you want me to do this myself? Ugh. What a joke. Next. Then after more people began to leave the site, Linkara tries to paint himself as some kind of reasonable authority figure and decided, in his own words, it would be best to try to fix things, particularly for the new producers who had only more recently signed on. And how does he fix things? By asking for free stuff. Yeah, he sends management a list of complaints as well as several ideas he had for improving the site, which included improved communication with producers, a dedicated social media person, have the social media link on the sidebar of the site promoting not just Doug's work but various producers, reduce wasteful spending, opening the Channel Awesome studio to be rented by other video producers, less charity drives where people are flown out, I don't know, seems like a complete waste of money there. Bring back the anniversary movies, in particular paying for them through the use of crowdfunding campaign. Did you guys hate doing these movies or not? I mean, people keep complaining about... Never mind. A larger, more deliberate presence at conventions to promote the site, I don't know. Most of Linkara's suggestions just involve having Channel Awesome shell a bunch of money out of their own pocket to hire more people and just divert resources someplace else. All for people who are not employees and don't contribute anything to the site aside from just having their videos hosted. Nah man, this ain't how you fix things. I mean, this dude just wanted Doug to put all of this work and money into hiring a bunch of people who'd specifically moderate forums and give all of these subdivisions more budgets while everybody else would profit off of it. I mean, did you guys put money into the site? Were you a partner? Are you a shareholder? If not, then you have no reason to think that they'll consider any of this. Like the suggestion about releasing information on what the higher-ups actually do. It's like, dude, you don't even work for them. In fact, nowhere in these suggestions do I see any of this coming out of your budget. I mean, if you want to fix things so badly, why don't you shell some money out of your own pocket to make this stuff happen? And why don't you apply for a real job there? You're not fixing anything. You're a non-employee telling a company what they should do and looking to reap the benefits when they do it. You want to fix things for the new producers, yet you couldn't even be bothered to moderate a forum. Why would they listen to anything that you have to say? Really didn't think that through, did you? But the most pathetic complaint I could see is this, where he decided to make his own movie and requested to utilize the Channel Awesome studio to Mike Bashad and Rob Walker. Rob seemed cool with the idea, but Bashad flat out refused for 3 reasons. 1, it would interrupt the production of the Nostalgia Critic. 2, someone would need to be with us to supervise us. 3, I would have to get insurance to protect against damage to the studio. These points are all ridiculous for a number of reasons. While production of the Nostalgia Critic could have been impacted, we would have been happy to spend some money to rent the space and make up for any lost revenue. So what, you don't even have a good response then? Yeah, you would have been inconvenienced, but I still would have paid you back. No, that's not the point. It's still a pointless inconvenience. Plus, in the same document, both Iron Liz and Lindsay Ellis, as we'll soon see, chastised Doug Walker for not securing any production insurance on Suburban Nights. Like, remember when Liz got her knee bashed in and they had her sign that thing? So, apparently if Doug doesn't get any insurance, he's a complete moron, but if Linkara doesn't get any insurance, it's okay. In addition, not every Nostalgia Critic episode requires the use of the studio space. Simpler, less grandiose episodes could be made. Plus, Doug had done Nostalgia Critic for 5 years before without the use of the studio and can simply film somewhere else in a manner that did not interrupt his video production. Wow, that is incredibly arrogant and pompous of you. Like, who are you to tell somebody how they should run their own show and how they should utilize the studio that they own? Yeah, you need to make simpler videos so I can use your studio space the way I want. Talk about entitlement. The idea that we would need to be supervised is insulting. We are all grown adults and do not require someone watching us at all times. It conveyed an idea that we were untrustworthy and could not act responsibly. Dude, are you 5 years old? All film and television projects do use studio managers to oversee the general duties and overall production of a studio. Professional movie studios do require supervision. There's liability involved. The studio lease is in their name. They don't want to be held liable if something goes wrong. This has nothing to do with being untrustworthy. I mean, have you ever heard of property damage? The studio we did end up renting did not see any need to supervise us. The people who owned and worked in the studio normally simply stayed in the office area to provide any assistance that we requested. That's literally what supervision is. The insurance request was not unreasonable. You just contradicted yourself. You just said that all of these points are ridiculous for a number of reasons, and now you're saying that one of the points was valid. Ay. Then he ends up destroying his own argument by pointing out that using the studio wouldn't have worked anyway, since his movie involved complicated sets that would need to be transported down from Minnesota at a great cost of time and labor with no way to transport them back again for later use, but is still upset that Bashad was not even willing to humor the idea or discuss it any further, which demonstrated an unwillingness to work with us, compromise, or negotiate to make things easier. But he did make things easier.
Let's just think about the logic, shall we? Let's just think about it for a second.
Linkara is based in Minnesota. The Channel Awesome studio is in Chicago, Illinois. Assuming these people wanted to drive down there, that's a good 9.5 hour long commute. So for Linkara to use this studio, he'd have to tear down all of the existing sets that he built in Minnesota and then gather all of them up in a U-Haul, which would have costed him more money, and drove 9 hours to the studio. And there's also the account of the risk of possibly damaging his props and sets too. Then, when he got to the studio, he'd have to have his crew put all of those sets and props up back together to prepare them for the shoot, costing God knows how much time, and then take them all down once shooting concluded, and then drive it back to Minnesota for 9 hours. An endeavor that Linkara just admitted was impossible. Not to mention factoring in the gas prices for such a long commute, and the cost of the rental vehicles, and the payment for the crew's time and labor. I mean, it's just not worth it. That just seems like a needless waste of time. I mean, when you take all that into account, what else is there to discuss? You wanted to use their studio and they said no, big deal. I mean, your movie was still made with little issues, so what's the point of even complaining about this? You literally admitted in your own words that this would not have worked. Like, Mike Mashad just saved you time, money, and a huge headache, and Linkara is using this as an example of Channel Awesome management being unreasonable. This man is an idiot. I also love how Linkara wants to whine about the fact that Mike Mashad thinking that he would be the one to solve his own moderation complaint showed a disregard of the lives of the people who were told to fix it, all the while expecting Doug, on top of doing his shows and videos, to do all of this work to make these successful sub-brands with his time and money and just hand over his studio to him, not caring about his personal life or schedule. Your show won't be affected that badly, just make shorter videos, Doug. Hypocrisy, thy name is Louis Lovehog. Linkara's segment is a joke, man. I mean, at least with some people, you can kind of see where they're coming from, but Linkara has not listed a single legitimate problem in this entire document. He hasn't even listed anything really morally wrong. All of his complaints are just him whining about how he wasn't given something. He's like,
Doug didn't give me enough free stuff, or Channel Awesome didn't give me money to run Ink Reality, even though I didn't want to do it anyway, and there's no forum moderation, and Doug didn't go to a corner of his own studio so I can film my movie, and I'm still going to complain even though I admitted that using Doug's studio would be a major hindrance in the long run, but I don't know, I gotta complain about something.
this is pathetic, man.
And once again, I have to dig in here and say that, like many other ex-contributors, I don't believe Linkara is being 100% honest. As it was stated before, he likes to portray himself as a dedicated company man, and he tried his best to fix things for the new producers. Oh yes, noble, but it's very clear that the only reason he stayed on the site as long as he did was because the site still gave him views and ad revenue. Based on his Twitter replies at the time, he was perfectly fine staying with the site despite its alleged issues because the money was still rolling through for him. It wasn't until he was guilt-tripped by other contributors, more noticeably Marzgurl, did he decide to change his tune.
Since we're talking about his Twitter, it really is sad, like how even 6 years after the fact and all this died down and people have moved on, Linkara is still taking to Twitter to whine about Channel Awesome as if they have any bearing on his life now. Just take a look at this thread he released a few months ago where he cries about how Channel Awesome's website shutting down is somehow a betrayal to him and tarnishes his legacy.
If you haven't heard, apparently the site itself now just redirects to their YouTube page and doesn't exist as its own site anymore. Apparently this happened a couple of weeks ago and nobody noticed until now.
Well, yeah, I mean, the site's useless now. I mean, its original purpose was to act as a network for different internet reviewers, but all of its contributors left and people can just watch Channel Awesome content on YouTube. It's just a waste of money and resources to have it up at this point. Nobody was going to it.
So you know what actually gets to me now that Channel Awesome as a website is gone? It's the final erasure of us as a group, of being more than just Doug stuff. Oh, sure, we stopped being together back in 2018. We did our own things, made our own big crossover project without them. Check out A Voice from the Dark. And went our own ways. But something I noticed whenever I saw someone talking about Doug's more modern stuff, showed footage of their studio and the like, it was always decorated with just Nostalgia Critic stuff. All their big clipless reviews and big stuff that had nothing to do with the rest of us.
Jesus, this is embarrassing. I mean, the guy sounds like a toxic lover mad that their ex doesn't talk about them anymore despite him being the one breaking up with them. I mean, dude, you left the site. You cut ties with them years ago. You also never worked for these people. You didn't sign a contract. The site doesn't owe you anything. Like, what they do with their own assets and their own property is no business of yours. Why would you think they would mention people who have no affiliation with them anymore?
And this was all compounded by another thing, their store going down, and as far as I know, never going back up. And also when I tried to replace the embed codes of the anniversary movies. Yeah, I know most people hate them and mock them. I get it. But they were part of my own show's history. The Atop the Fourth Wall movie followed up on stuff from To Boldly Flee. And I wanted to preserve that history so anyone who truly wanted to see the full depth of everything I've done could see it. And they didn't have those movies up on their site anymore.
Ugh, me. It's all about me. Why would you take down your legally owned videos when my movie is a direct sequel to them?
Ugh, God. Cry me a freaking river, dude. I mean, like, how long have you been making content? For like, what, 15 years? And you never thought to keep all your stuff backed up on a hard drive? I mean, if you really want people to see this stuff, archive it yourself. Jesus, I mean, does Channel Awesome have to do everything for you? Oh, wait, yeah, they did. Besides, I thought these movies were horribly made and they like horribly and psychologically damaged your friends or whatever. Why would you want to preserve their legacy?
Doug's originally DVD exclusive reviews of them were up on his site, but the actual anniversaries themselves were gone. You add on their lack of decoration for anything they did while they were a bigger group of people, they erased us. They didn't want people to think of us ever being a part of them.
Well, yeah, of course they erased you. I mean, you treated them horribly. You joined in on a hate mob to harass and defame them. You happily sat back and laughed with all of your friends about how evil Mashad was and how dumb Doug and Rob are, and that you all hated working with them and how miserable everybody was and how horribly the site was run and management was stupid and they didn't care about anyone. I mean, not to mention that you guys are the same people who falsely accused them of committing crimes like committing fraud and protecting a sexual predator. Alison Pregler even said that none of you guys ever liked Doug and were never his friends. Why would you think they'd ever want anything to do with you people again? You expected them to honor the memories of the same people who tried to cancel them? Are you crazy?
They brush off the Google Doc and our complaints, being vague about, oh, we were just too big and there were communication issues, and not, we shared a website together for a decade doing numerous crossovers and movies.
Well, the Google document is not a reliable source of information. It's a 70-page coping mechanism written by a bunch of idiots who, instead of leaving and taking charge of their own careers, decided to stay and blame all of their problems on Mike Mashad. If you didn't want people to brush off the document, then maybe you should have included stuff that actually mattered, and not a bunch of inconsequential petty slights like bad website management, or Doug not liking anime, or Doug not knowing how to record a commentary, or Doug not giving you everything you wanted when you asked for it. The many provable lies your friends left in there don't help either. If you really wanted to reminisce on the good old days that you had together, then you probably should have tried to handle your beef with them privately like an adult and not shout all of your problems to the world and start some dumb campaign to turn the entire internet against them out of pettiness due to your inability to get over minor slights that happened a decade ago. I mean, y'all didn't just burn this bridge, you nuked it.
Farewell, CA's website. You may have tried to make everyone else forget, but I didn't. May flights of inexplicable bees that somehow made it into your shitty logo that you made extravagant promises to us about sing thee to thy rest.
Here lies Linkara's hopes and dreams.
What a baby. Get out of here.